calculations, but we really haven't made a decision. So I'm inviting you to work this exercise with me, and I'm telling you right off that there is no prize for the person that gets the right answer on letter B first. I gripe at you if you don't get a little bit ahead of me, but I gripe at you if you go too fast. This exercise is not about getting the right answers, crunching the numbers. That was the purpose of Monday's lecture, of Tuesday's class, and the homework problems you've already done. This exercise is about doing something with the calculations, learning what questions to ask, the answers to which could help us make decisions in the business. Let's work it. Does everybody have a handout? There were enough on your row? Yes, you got one, Toby? T Company operated at full capacity during the past year. Fixed costs and expenses were $275,000. Variable costs and expenses were 45% of sales. Raise your hand if you know the contribution margin ratio. I was expecting 100% and I don't have that. I'll give you another chance. Raise your hand if you know the contribution margin ratio. Good. Now say it. 55%. Would one person raise your hand and tell me how you got it? Brandon?
1 minus the variable cost.
I like the way you said that. It's the complement of the percent of variable cost, right, Brandon?
Mm-hmm.
And sales totaled $600,000. Management proposed to expand plant capacity by 50%, which will increase fixed costs and expenses by 110 yearly, but won't affect the ratio of variable costs and expenses to sales. Compute the operating income under the present conditions. Well, may I confess that I'm more of an accountant than a mathematician. And if somebody asked me to find operating income, net income, I'm more likely to prepare an income statement than I am to write an algebraic expression to solve it. That could be done with the break-even formula we've learned this week. Tweak it a little, change it a little, solve for target net income or operating income. We could do that. We could do it horizontally, is my point. But I'm choosing to do it vertically like an income statement. Will you help me out? We don't have room for a heading. Right after the heading, we're going to start with Aaron.
Sales.
How much?
600,000.
600,000 of sales needs to be reduced by some things. If you can contribute one of the things to this discussion, raise your hand, let's talk. From sales, we want to subtract Alexis.
Variable cost.
How would we determine that, Alexis?
Cost of goods sold.
Beginning inventory plus cost of goods manufactured plus fixed manufacturing costs summed minus the ending inventory is cost of goods sold. You want to do it that way, Alexis?
Sure.
I'm not sure that we have that information. We've done it exactly that way in other problems, but we've got to play the hand we're dealt here. Help me find variable cost. That was your correct answer.
Variable cost. 45% of sales.
45% of sales. Let's do that sales figure. I thought I'd uncovered it. 600,000 times 45%. Alexis, you got me a number?
270,000.
Auditors?
That's right.
$270,000 of variable cost. Somebody tell me something we need to subtract to get what they ask us for. What's next? Let's go faster. What's next, TJ? Fixed cost, where?
320.
Have you seen me give you enough alternate solutions that you aren't married to one particular one? Sometimes we would put all these numbers in the right-hand column. We'd say sales minus variable cost is contribution margin minus fixed cost is net income. Nobody asked me to show my work. I'm not getting extra credit for good format. I'm trying to find an answer. The question is, what is operating income? The answer is, everybody that knows said?
15,000.
55,000.
One more time?
55,000.
55,000. What did we learn? It's more about the conclusions that we reach from this than it is the calculations we make. For each one of these, I need you to be aware of what we know now that we didn't know a minute ago. From having read the opening paragraph and calculating this, I believe we now know that we're producing the most that we can produce, and therefore making the most we can make. The most we can make is $55,000. Am I right or wrong?
That's right.
Doesn't the paragraph say that?
Yeah.
We're producing at 100% capacity. This is the most we can produce and sell. 55,000 is the most we can make. Agreed or not? Well, no wonder the management's considering expanding the plant then. Let's read B. Compute the break-even point under present and proposed conditions. The vertical line is to provide you with two areas in which to work. I'd suggest that you do present conditions on the left side and proposed conditions on the right side. You do it however you'd like. I have this question for you. Who, if I called on you right this minute, could say the break-even formula for me? Hands up high. Let's all say it. The break-even formula is sales equals fixed costs plus variable costs. What's this all about, Sam?
I said variable first,
Is there anything wrong with that? Well, then why'd you get all tweaked out about it?
just because it was went against the
Just
flow.
calm down. It's okay, Sam. Just remain calm.
Oh, gosh.
Sales equals variable cost plus fixed cost. It's going to give you the same answer. Let's go. Plug in sales for me. What are sales, Nick?
Unknown.
What are sales, Esther? Huh?
600,000.
I didn't hear you. 600,000. What are sales, Eric? Dustin? Eric sits there in another class.
We don't know.
Why don't we know? It's given right there in the problem.
But that's the, or not, the present, or like
And what were,
Actual.
and what were we asked to find?
break even.
Ah, we don't know, do we?
Nope.
It's a trick. It's always good when somebody will fall for it to make you stronger next time and not fall for it. We want to know what sales would be in order to break even. The question is, what is the level of sales at which we would break even? We don't know. We're going to try to find out. S, X. Do we know fixed cost width?
Yes, we do.
How much are they?
275,000.
Do we know variable cost width?
No. We know the percentage. That's. I guess we. No.
No.
No, that's not it.
Width? Do we know variable cost?
No, we don't.
Why don't we?
Because we're trying to find the break-even point.
We're trying to find variable cost at the break-even point.
Right.
If we don't know sales, we don't know variable cost.
Right.
Because variable costs are tied to sales. Right? Width?
Right.
What is the percent of variable cost?
0.5 or 55%.
So, ooh, or 45%.
55%.
Our variable cost? Our variable?
Oh, sorry, 45%.
Or 55%.
45. I just read the paragraph again. So.
I was trying to help you, but you didn't trust me. I don't know why. So, is this a correct expression? Width?
Yeah.
Class?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
How about you isolating the variable and combining like terms all in one step for me and describing the next line? Who's willing? Jeff?
45% S equals, no, 55% S.
Which is it, Jeff? 45, 55. Which says 45, 55 sometimes. Now you're saying 45 sometimes, 55 sometimes. Which is it?
It's 55,
Why?
because when you take the, just 1 minus 45 equals 55.
We took it over. We combined it with what was there. We tried to combine two things, two steps into one. We were left with 55% S equals
275,000.
fixed cost. Solve this for me. If you've already done it, raise your hand and tell me what you got. Alexis?
I got 151,250.
Yolanda? Speak up just a little bit. 500,000, is that what you said? Chriselle?
I got 500,000.
500,000. Toby?
500,000.
Huh?
500,000.
500,000. Alexis? Did you multiply this
probably did.
by 55%?
I probably did.
Well, don't
read it
probably
right.
me. Just say you did or didn't.
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
And I even talked about that in Monday's lecture, that was a possibility. If we talk about common mistakes here, there it is. Don't do that. What'd you get, everybody?
I got 50,000.
500,000.
500,000. What did we learn this time?
Not too much.
Right now, sales are. Right now, sales are 600,000. What are sales at break even?
500,000.
What's the margin of safety?
500,000.
$100,000 margin of safety. That's a good thing. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've got a margin of safety. And the proposed conditions would use the same break-even formula, but change what integral parts of that formula. I need a hand up. Who's going to talk to me right this minute? Shane.
Fixed costs.
What about them?
They will change.
How much?
110,000.
How? Why? What's going on
Says
here?
in the problem.
Yeah. Management proposes to expand the plant capacity by 50%, which will increase fixed costs by $110,000. To what new number, Shane?
385,000.
Now, fixed costs are going to be $385,000. Other things in the expression stay the same. We ought to go for this. Isolate the variable. Combine like terms.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Why didn't the 45% change to 50?
Because the problem says it's not going to.
Okay.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
But will not affect the ratio of variable costs and expenses to sales. The last phrase. Okay, Alexis?
Okay.
Here we go. Declan, you got me an answer?
Yes, sir.
What'd you get? Did you say yes or no, sir?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
What'd you get? Bottom line. Just jump to the end.
700,000.
700,000 has been suggested. I could use some auditors.
That's correct.
What'd we learn? Shane, could you and Josh not talk, please? What'd we learn?
This is going to be too expensive for us.
No. I'm wanting to compare each thing that we determine and reach some conclusion about why we did that and what we know now that we didn't know a moment ago. What are present sales? What would we have to, what's the current break-even point? 500,000. So I think these are really questions, marketing questions that we're trying to come up with here. And I confess I don't know the answers to these questions, but at least I know what question to ask. The first question is, can you increase sales by $100,000? Where's that? Right now we're selling 6. We'd have to sell 7 just to break even. Are you with me? If the answer to this question is no, you can't increase sales by $100,000, then I'm with you with call it off. Not worth it. We can throw this handout away and move on to some other exercise. If you can't increase sales immediately, why would you go from a position of profitability to a position of loss? And that's exactly where you're going if you can't increase sales by $100,000. Y'all with me? Can you increase sales by $100,000? Well, if it's the usual marketing vigor, oh yeah, you produce them, I'll sell them, then we press on to the next calculation here. Here we go. It says, compute the sales necessary under the proposed conditions to reach the present operating income. Let me see if I can put some realism to that. You're the manager. Right now, net income is how much?
600,000.
I didn't hear the right answer. You might have said it, I didn't hear it. Right now, net income is how much? Your mumblers, speak up. 55,000, thank you very much. And your bonus is based on net income. And if you can increase sales by $100,000, where are you going to be? At break even and earning how much of a bonus? You're not feeling this. Brandy's the only one responding to me. And maybe one more. Are y'all with me or not?
Yes.
What manager whose bonus is based on net income is willing to break even once they've been profitable? That's like the question I asked you in Monday's lecture. Do you and your roommate want to go in business together and break even? No. If we can't at least make the same we're making now, this doesn't sound like a very good proposal to me. As a minimum, how about we find out what it would take to make what we're making now? Write me an expression. What's the formula going to look like? I need a volunteer. Jeff?
Sales equals fixed cost plus variable cost plus target net income.
In this book, we call it target net income. We could call it net income. We could call it operating income. There's lots of names for it. We're going to call it target net income. Jeff, plug in what we know. Sales.
Sales we don't know.
That's what we were asked to find. Fixed cost.
385,000.
Variable cost.
45. Sales, production of sales.
Good. Target net income.
700,000.
That's sales.
Oh, 55.
$55,000 we determined back in part 1, I believe, A. We want to make the same thing now we've been making. 55,000. If you're with me right this minute, good. If you're not, this would be a great time to ask a question. So, solve it. Isolate the variable. Combine like terms. Sam, you got me an answer? You're almost there? Toby,
Yeah.
what'd you get?
800,000.
800,000's been suggested. I need an auditor.
That's correct.
I think there are 3 questions we're going to learn on this handout. The first question was, can you increase sales by 100,000? And if we can, where are we? Break even. The second question we just learned to ask is, can you increase sales by, Nick?
200,000.
200,000. Tell the class where you got that.
600,000.
Right now we're selling 600. Go.
And we have to sell 800 to get.
We'd have to sell 800,000. I forgot to uncover it. To be right back where we started, maintaining the status quo. Who's with Nick and me? Good. Whit, I griped at you a minute ago for being premature about your decision. I'm wondering how you're feeling about this right now that we know more information.
Oh, let's do it.
Is this like you like this?
Yes.
What do you think, class? Just a consensus about adopting or rejecting this proposal right this minute? How y'all feeling? Good or bad?
Depends on.
Like the proposal, hands up. Have reservations about the proposal, hands up. Could care less about the proposal, hands up. There are a few of those in this room, I'm sorry to say. I don't think this looks so good, personally. I think those are some pretty high expectations for us to just be right back where we are. This is bottom of the ninth, 2 outs. Anybody feel that? Let's do D, is it? Compute the maximum operating income under the proposed conditions. Well, this question is similar to A, where I said I'd rather do this accounting-wise than algebraically. If you want to come up with an algebraic solution to that and work it out and get the right answer, I have no problem with that whatsoever. But mine's going to look more like an income statement. I don't have room for a heading. But right after the heading, I'm going to write sales. And I'm wondering if somebody in the room could fill in that dollar amount for me. How much are sales? Alexis?
700,000.
Brandy? Toby?
900,000.
I love multiple choice questions. Did y'all hear what just happened?
Mm-hmm.
I wish somebody would say 500,000 and somebody would say none of the above. And oh, we need all of the above. Okay, no, I don't think it'd be all of the above.
A and C.
Help me out here. How much are sales? Aaron, you got a thought on this? 900,000? Aaron, tell me how you got 900,000.
If we increase the capacity by 50%, we would times your current sales by 1.5.
That is correct. Not everybody in the room could follow that. So I'm going to say, to support your answer, right now we're selling 600,000, and it's the most we can sell. If we expand the plant by 50%, we could sell half of what we're selling now in addition to what we're selling now, right? We'll still sell the 600,000, but we would be able to sell 300,000 more than that. Sales at full capacity would now be 900,000. Shane?
But, I mean, it doesn't say that as a problem. It doesn't say that we're necessarily operating at full capacity.
It does. Pretty sure.
First sentence,
There you go. It's okay. So, if sales are 900,000, what are the costs that we incur? Could I have some help? With?
The variable costs are 45% of sales, so 45%, or excuse me, 45% of sales,
Would be
which is 405,000.
405,000. Whit thinks is variable cost. Is he right, class? Whit, you want on the hook or off the hook?
On the hook.
Go.
Then we have to add fixed costs, which was 385,000.
I don't see that number anywhere.
We calculated it
Oh, yes, I
on
did.
the
Sorry. That's the number we've been using under the proposed conditions, right? They used to be 275,000, was that it?
Right.
And we increased it by an additional 110,000. Fixed costs are now 385,000. Anything else you want to say here, Whit?
Then we total those to get 790,000.
Good.
And then we subtract that from 900 to get 110,000.
110,000. So let's talk about 3 questions we learned to ask. The first question was, can you increase sales by... Y'all forgot so quickly. Come on. Can we increase sales by 100,000? And if we can, where are we? Breaking even. The second question was, can you increase sales by 200,000? And if we can, where are we? Right back where we started, making the same amount, maintaining the status quo. What did we learn this time? The third question is, talk to me. Can we increase sales by 300,000? And if we can, where are we? Yeah, but how does that compare?
Double.
Making twice as much as we were before the plant expansion. Something that didn't look so good to me a few minutes ago, all of a sudden looks really, really promising depending on the answers to the 3 questions. I don't know the answers to the 3 questions, but I know what to ask. I know what to go find out. If those answers came back favorable or unfavorable, we'd know better about how to address this. Who's got a question about this? Last call. Work a brief exercise. How about turning with me to brief exercise 22-6, page 986. 22-6, page 986, the brief exercise. You there yet? Say yes or no.
Yes.
Brief exercise 22-6, page 986 says, H company has a unit sales price of $400. Variable cost per unit of $260. Fixed cost of $210. Compute the break-even point in units using the mathematical equation and the contribution margin per unit. There are 2 different ways we can do this. The mathematical equation is the one that I introduced you to in lecture and is my favorite. The formula for that is, I'd like everybody to say it with me. Sales equals fixed costs plus variable cost. Which way did you say it that time? You conformed? We do drugs, you're going to do drugs? So sales are how much? Handout volunteer?
We don't.
Jeff's still looking for him. Wait till he. How much are sales, Jeff?
We don't know.
We don't know. We're looking for sales. We want to know the level of sales at which we would break even. Do we know fixed cost, class?
Yes, we do.
Could somebody tell me fixed cost?
210,000.
210,000 was stated in the problem. Now we're going to play a little guessing game. Read my mind. When I uncover what I've covered up on the board, what's it going to look like? Now, it's not the normal thing you would think. It's not an obvious answer. I'm giving hints, clues. How do you think I wrote it down this time? Give me some wrong guesses so we can get to the right.
0.65S.
0.65S would be the ordinary way I would write it down. And I didn't on this line. Jeff?
260 over 400 S.
Ding, 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 ding. And then with, I did this. Anybody way ahead of us and have an answer yet? I'll pause briefly. Oh, we got some note takers going on here. Toby? Josh? Nick?
600,000.
TJ?
600,000.
Isolate the variable, combine like terms, solve, you get 600,000, the break-even point. I bet we could find the break-even point in units as a spinoff from this. Anybody want to do it for me real quick? In units? Break-even point in units. Jeff?
Divided by 400.
Divide 600,000 by 400,000. That's the number of units you'd have to sell to break even. But that's not what they ask us to do. They ask us in letter B to find the break-even point per unit. Sorry, the break-even point using the contribution margin per unit technique. I gave you that formula in class last time. I'm wondering if one person could raise your hand and tell me what it is. Alexis?
Is the actual sales minus actual sales minus the
That is sounding like margin of safety would be my guess. That is not the question I
yeah,
asked.
it is actually.
What is the formula for determining the break-even point in units using what the book's describing here as the contribution margin technique? I need somebody. Sam, you know the formula?
Fixed costs divided by contribution margin per unit.
Is correct. Can you plug in numbers and find me those? Fixed costs divided by the contribution margin per unit will give you break even in units. Sam, fixed cost?
Fixed cost is 210,000.
Contribution margin per unit, say numbers to show me how you got it.
I would do the unit selling price
Of?
the variable cost
That's correct. Unit sales price of?
of variable.
Unit sales price in this problem was?
400.
Variable cost were?
260.
So contribution margin per unit must be anybody in the room? Speak up. $140 per unit we're making. How many units would we have to sell to break even? Toby? 1,500 is 210,000 divided by 140. I need an auditor.
That's good.
There's more to 22-6, but I think that you need some time to do this wonderful little exercise.